They once made a fortune uncovering hidden treasures, but now, some of Storage Wars' biggest stars are struggling to hold on to what they have left. The show turned them into pop culture figures, bringing them fame, fortune, and larger-than-life personalities. But over the years, things took a turn. Financial troubles, heartbreaking losses, and personal struggles have left some of the original cast in dire straits. Instead of placing big bids at auctions, some are now the ones in need of help. So, what really happened to the stars of Storage Wars after the cameras stopped rolling? And why are some of them facing such hard times? Let's dive into the shocking truth. Dan and Laura Dotson. Dan and Laura Dotson, the married duo at the helm of Storage Wars, were the driving force behind those high-energy storage locker auctions. Week after week, they kept the bids flying and the chaos in check. No small feat when bidders were ready to throw down over mystery boxes. Dan brought that classic old-school auctioneer style, rattling off numbers at breakneck speed, while Laura kept things running smoothly and even delivered one of reality TV's most iconic lines, "Don't forget to pay the lady." But in June 2014, something happened that shook their world. It started late one night when Dan's voice sounded off, just enough for Laura to notice. He was in bed asking weird, random questions, like his brain was misfiring. Then the next morning, right after stepping out of the shower, he collapsed. Laura called 911 and he was rushed to the hospital. Doctors told her it was a subarachnoid hemorrhage caused by 2 aneurysms in different parts of his brain. On Storage Wars, she broke down recalling the moment her son helped her save Dan's life. He had just dropped, turning green and blue, but they stayed calm, got him on the ground, and did mouth-to-mouth. It was bad. So bad that doctors said he had only a 20% chance of making it, but Dan pulled through. After surgery, Laura told TMZ he was done smoking for good, because that habit made another trip to the hospital way more likely. And sure enough, once he was back on his feet, Dan was back on the auction block like nothing had ever happened. After the final lockers sold on Storage Wars in 2019, Dan and Laura didn't just fade into the background. They went right back to running their private auctions, but now they were bigger names than ever. Their company, American Auctioneers, became the go-to for handling auctions from start to finish. And they also ran StorageAuctions.net, a nationwide online marketplace for storage unit sales. Then, out of nowhere, tragedy struck again. According to today's News Herald, their 22-year-old son, Garrett Dotson, was outside in a neighborhood when a man named Garrett Wilder pulled up in his car and started yelling at him. When Garrett Dotson walked over, Wilder shot him in the chest. Laura told TMZ her son had to be airlifted to a hospital in Las Vegas, with a doctor literally holding his hand over the bullet wound to keep him alive. A few months after surgery, Garrett Dotson opened up about just how brutal the recovery was. The bullet was still lodged in his L3 vertebrae, and he had to wear a back brace for 8 weeks. But the struggle wasn't just physical. His medical bills stacked up to nearly $300,000. Thankfully, he had his parents to lean on, not just for financial help, but for emotional support too. In the end, Wilder was convicted of a drive-by shooting and sentenced to 10.5 years. The jury wavered a bit since there was evidence that Garrett had kicked Wilder's car, but the verdict stuck. These days, Garrett and his parents seem to be pushing forward with the same determination they've always had. Just like before they ever got famous. Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss, best known as the Collector on Storage Wars, quickly became a fan favorite for his distinctive approach to the high-stakes world of storage auctions. Unlike many of his fellow bidders, who focused purely on profit, Barry brought a laid-back attitude and a sense of adventure, often walking away with some of the show's most unusual finds. His experience and charisma set him apart, making him a standout personality in a series built around uncovering forgotten treasures. After 4 seasons, at the height of his popularity, Barry chose to step away from the show that made him a household name to pursue new ventures on his own terms. First up was Buried Treasure in 2014, where he traveled across the U.S., hunting for cool and rare collectibles, kind of like American Pickers. But it didn't last long, just 8 episodes. Then, in 2015, he was back with Storage Wars, Barry Strikes Back, teaming up with Kenny Crossley to show unseen footage from Storage Wars while cracking jokes along the way. That one made it 10 episodes before wrapping up. Then came 2019, and things took a bad turn. Barry was involved in a severe motorcycle accident while riding with a friend. According to TMZ, a car pulling out of a parking lot collided with them, resulting in critical injuries. Barry was rushed to the ICU, where doctors treated multiple serious injuries, including a broken femur and significant damage to his back. His recovery was long and arduous, requiring multiple surgeries and weeks of hospitalization. By June 2019, TMZ reported that he had finally been discharged and had begun physical therapy in hopes of regaining mobility. Since then, it looks like Barry's been laying low, taking it easy after everything he went through. But when Storage Wars came back in 2021, fans had one big question. Was Barry coming back too? And, lucky for them, the answer was yes. After years of recovery, he was back in good spirits and ready to jump back into the world of treasure hunting. Dave Hester. Although Storage Wars centered on the competition among local buyers, there was little doubt about who played the villain. Dave Hester firmly held that role, a fact acknowledged by fans, cast members, and even Hester himself. His signature catchphrase was emblazoned on his hat, but it was his frequent involvement in conflicts that truly set him apart. After 3 seasons, his departure from the show was far from quiet. It culminated in a legal battle. According to the Los Angeles Times, Hester sued A&E, claiming Storage Wars was staged. He said the producers were salting the storage lockers, slipping in rare and valuable finds like classic cars and old newspapers just to make things more exciting for TV. After getting fired in December 2012, he filed a $750,000 lawsuit against A&E and Original Productions for wrongful termination. But by 2014, the case was settled, and Hester was right back on the show like none of it ever happened. Then, in 2018, things took a serious turn. According to TMZ, Hester had a stroke out of nowhere. He woke up struggling to breathe and later found out it was caused by sleep apnea, something he didn't even know he had. That breathing issue triggered a hemorrhagic stroke, the kind that can cause permanent brain damage. Luckily, his girlfriend was there when it happened and got him to the hospital fast. Even though he didn't fall into a coma, recovery was no joke. He couldn't walk, couldn't do much of anything, and had to spend weeks in rehab just to get back on his feet. Then, in June 2020, he found himself in the spotlight once again, but this time due to another legal dispute. After purchasing an abandoned storage locker for $11,800, Public Storage later claimed the original owner had been current on their payments, leading them to cancel the sale. In response, Hester took legal action against the company. Outside of all that courtroom drama, he's been running his own auctioneering business, where people can hire him for events, and he's also working as a consultant in the auction world. Since he hasn't been on the recent seasons of Storage Wars, a lot of fans assumed he walked away from storage auctions altogether. But according to his Twitter, he's still deep in the game, always posting about his appearances at auctions in California. Looks like he's just happy to step away from reality TV and do what he loves on his own terms. Mark Balelo. Mark Balelo brought a whole different energy to Storage Wars when he showed up in seasons 2, 3, and 4. The man had confidence for days, always rolling up in fancy outfits, like he was heading to a red carpet event instead of a storage auction. And when it came time to bid, he didn't play around, cash only, always coming through with a fat stack of bills, ready to drop serious money. That kind of flash made him stand out, earning him the nickname Rico Suave. But behind all that swagger, there was a darker side to his story. Back in 2012, Radar reported that Balelo had violated his probation, which went back to a substance charge from 2009. As a result, he was sentenced to 45 days in jail. The violation occurred when he left his home state, while in possession of a firearm he had discovered in a storage unit, an act that landed him back in legal trouble. Following the news, his then-girlfriend, Elizabeth Methodist, came to his defense, emphasizing his generosity and deep commitment to autism charities, where he sometimes went so far as to donate entire storage lockers to support the cause. Then, just days after getting arrested again on a methamphetamine charge in February 2013, Balelo was found dead in one of his cars. The Los Angeles Times reported that it was ruled a suicide. A&E put out a statement saying they were heartbroken over the news and that their thoughts were with his family. Methodist and Balelo had actually been engaged before he passed, and auctioneer Dan Dotson took to social media to send love to Balelo's young kids, his family, and his fiancée, Elizabeth. Daryl Sheets. Everybody on Storage Wars had a nickname, and for Daryl Sheets, it was the Gambler. He wasn't afraid to throw down serious cash on a storage unit, and a lot of the time, it paid off big. Like that time, he spent $3,600 on a locker and found artwork inside worth $300,000. That was the biggest score in Storage Wars history, at least up until 2012, according to HuffPost. Daryl remained a central figure on Storage Wars throughout its 12-season run. However, once the show concluded, he chose to slow down, embracing a semi-retired lifestyle focused on his well-being. During his time on the series, he made headlines for his significant weight loss with Nutrisystem, as reported by PR Newswire. Meanwhile, his personal life saw changes as well. At some point, he and his wife, Kimber Werfel, divorced. Despite all that, nothing could have prepared him for the health scare he faced in 2019. In March of that year, while attending a Justin Timberlake concert, he suddenly began experiencing symptoms of a heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital, where he kept fans updated on Instagram, even managing to joke about making it through part of the show. However, beneath the humor, the situation was serious. He later revealed that he had been feeling unwell for months, and in addition to the heart attack, doctors diagnosed him with a lung infection. At first, he described the heart attack as mild, but the reality became clear after surgery. It was far more severe than he had realized. Doctors placed 2 stents in his arteries and diagnosed him with congestive heart failure, warning that he had been just days away from death. One of his arteries was 95% blocked, a condition so critical it had a name, the Widowmaker. The experience was a turning point. While grateful to have survived, he acknowledged regrets about not prioritizing his health sooner. It was also then that he revealed he had been living with diabetes. By April 2019, he shared another update. Turns out, he had actually suffered 2 heart attacks, one right after the other. But the good news was he was recovering well and wouldn't need any more surgeries or a pacemaker. A year later, he celebrated a big milestone, making it through his first year post-surgery, and admitted it hadn't been easy. But he did it. Ever since then, Daryl has embraced a quieter life as a buyer, settling in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. He remains active on Instagram, often sharing heartfelt messages about his granddaughter, Zoe. Though his appearances on Storage Wars have been limited to a few cameos in seasons 13 and 14, he appears content with the life he has built beyond the show. Renee and Casey Nezhoda. When Storage Wars hit Season 4, Renee and Casey Nezhoda joined the mix, bringing their own style to the locker-buying game. Renee had been in the reselling world since he was 11, always on the hunt for a deal. And eventually, he and Casey opened Bargain Hunter's thrift store. That shop, their business, and their chemistry as a team made them a perfect fit for the show, blending right in with the rest of the buyers. They had already spent years scouring storage auctions, always looking for the next big find to stock their massive 7,000-square-foot thrift store in Poway, just outside San Diego. And even long after Storage Wars wrapped up, that store is still thriving, according to Yelp. They keep things fresh with their marketing, including a YouTube channel that fits perfectly with their brand. Over 90,000 subscribers tune in to watch them go through live auctions, break down cool collections, and unbox their latest finds. But Renee and Casey took things a step further, diving into the world of buying storage units once owned by famous people. In November 2018, they took a chance on Farrah Fawcett's storage lockers, dropping $3,500 to see what treasures might be inside. Turns out, it wasn't the jackpot they were hoping for, but they still found a few interesting things. That purchase also came with some drama. Fawcett's nephew ended up suing them, claiming the seller never had the right to auction off the estate's belongings, according to The Blast. That didn't stop them, though. They kept going after high-profile units, including one that belonged to NBA star Lamar Odom. That locker was packed with game-worn jerseys, shoes, and even personal items from his marriage to Khloe Kardashian. In 2020, they met up with comedian Jamie Kennedy and bought movie memorabilia right out of his garage. And at one point, they even landed pieces worn by Kobe Bryant, according to Bleacher Report. By December 27, 2022, Renee took to Instagram to announce he was selling off the last of the Kobe Bryant memorabilia on Whatnot, an online marketplace for secondhand goods. But no matter what they're selling, Renee and Casey stay busy on social media, sharing their latest finds, promoting their YouTube channel, and giving fans a glimpse into their family life. Then, in March 2023, Renee had to share something much harder than his usual auction wins. His father, Gunter Nezhoda, had passed away at 67. Renee explained that his dad had been diagnosed with lung cancer just 6 months earlier, after smoking for 30 years. His lungs were in such bad shape that doctors said there was nothing they could do, but the family had still been hoping for a miracle. In the end, Gunter passed away peacefully in his sleep from complications related to the illness. Before he started making appearances on Storage Wars with his son, Gunter had already made his mark in entertainment. He had small roles in a few indie films, including Astro Zombies, M4, Invaders from Cyberspace, and The Haunting at Death Valley Junction. But outside of acting, he was also a talented bass player, working with artists like Pat Travers and George Lynch from Dokken. Gunter was widely regarded as a genuinely likable figure, earning the respect and admiration of both fans and the Storage Wars crew alike. Even the show's most infamous bidder, Dave Hester, seemed to have a softer side around him. On one occasion, Hester went so far as to promise he wouldn't bid on a locker if Gunter had his eye on it. He even shared a rare moment of humor with Renee, suggesting that if he grew his hair out like his father's, he might become a nicer guy. Now, with Storage Wars returning, Renee and Casey remain at the heart of the action, continuing their search for hidden treasures, striking deals, and keeping the excitement of the auction world alive. Prigoff. Most cast members of Storage Wars make their living through a familiar formula: purchasing abandoned storage lockers, reselling their finds, and turning a profit. However, for Prigoff of Storage Wars, Texas, the auction scene was merely a side venture. Prigoff operated a small, upscale antique and furniture shop called River Regency for about a decade, but his primary profession was far from the world of storage auctions. He was a highly successful podiatric surgeon running a surgical podiatry clinic in Dallas. Beyond his practice, he was also affiliated with the International Foot and Ankle Foundation for Education and Research, as noted on his Facebook page. Even after Storage Wars Texas ended, Prigoff kept balancing both worlds, his love for antiques and his medical career. But sadly, he passed away in March 2021 after what his obituary called a serious 6-year illness. Brandi Sheets. Brandi Sheets, known as Side Bet, was a key figure in Storage Wars from its inception, appearing alongside his father, Daryl Sheets, through Season 9. However, his departure raised questions among fans. Did he leave on his own terms, or was there a conflict with the network? In reality, A&E faced budget cuts and could no longer compensate the cast as before. Unfortunately for Brandon, this meant he was let go, something he did not take lightly. He publicly criticized the network on Twitter, expressing frustration over his dismissal. However, those posts have since been deleted. Even though things with A&E ended on a sour note, Brandon didn't let it keep him down. He switched things up and got into real estate in Arizona, according to his Facebook. But that didn't seem to stick either, because now his page says he's moved on from that too. These days, according to his Instagram, Brandon's working as a UPS driver and fully focused on being a family man. And even though Storage Wars made its comeback in 2021, he's clearly left that part of his life behind. Fans miss him, sure, but honestly, he seems happier just being a working dad and a loving husband. And that's what really matters. Jared Schulz. Every week on Storage Wars, fans got to watch their favorite bickering duo, Jared Schulz and Brandi Pante. They met back in '99 while working at a carpet cleaning place, and before long, they were hitting up auctions together. That chemistry, both the good and the bad, made them instant fan favorites, according to the Orange County Register. They were so popular, A&E even gave them their own spin-off, Brandi and Jared, Married to the Job. Now, a lot of viewers just assumed they were married. Their frequent arguments resembled those of a longtime couple, and they often referred to each other as life partners. However, they never officially tied the knot. Then, in the summer of 2020, they publicly announced their breakup. According to TV show's Ace, Brandi revealed on the Dad Diary that they had actually separated as early as 2018. Schulz initially believed that their breakup wouldn't significantly impact their participation in storage auctions. He assumed they could continue attending the same auctions, just independently. Beyond the auction scene, the young gun focused on his clothing brand, Outlaw Apparel, and later launched the Rush Bar and Grill. However, despite moving forward professionally, he found himself entangled in legal trouble involving Pante. According to TMZ, he faced a domestic violence charge in 2021, which may explain his absence from Storage Wars Season 14. Ivy Calvin. Ivy Calvin didn't just walk into the storage auction game, he came in swinging. With a background in mixed martial arts and arena football, He brought a whole new level of competition when he joined Storage Wars in Season 3, according to history. But long before TV came calling, Calvin had already developed a real passion for secondhand treasures. He was out on the road, traveling from state to state, hunting for rare finds to stock up his California thrift store, Grandma's Attic. Appearing on Storage Wars proved to be a turning point for his business, significantly increasing its visibility and attracting a steady stream of new customers. The exposure allowed him to establish a successful livelihood beyond television. In 2020, fellow cast members Renee and Nezhoda visited his store, exploring an eclectic collection of vintage items, including toys, sphere radios, and straight razors. Their visit, documented on YouTube, offered viewers a glimpse into the unique treasures housed within Grandma's attic. When Storage Wars went on hiatus in 2019, Calvin transitioned to managing his business full-time. This break also allowed him to spend more time with his wife and 2 sons, as reported by Distractify. While he maintains a relatively private life outside the auction scene, his social media presence offers a glimpse into his passion for thrifting. On Instagram, he frequently shares his latest discoveries, from rare Pokémon cards to high-end designer handbags. Crossley. Kenny Crossley's journey to reality TV fame and his title as the Praline King was far from conventional. Before making his mark in Storage Wars during its 3rd season, Crossley pursued a career in law enforcement, working to maintain order rather than bidding on abandoned storage units. However, life took an unexpected turn, leading him into the storage auction business, a path that would introduce him to Weiss, the charismatic businessman known for his sharp wit and distinctive style. Their connection proved pivotal, and before long, Crossley became a familiar face in the Storage Wars franchise. Even though he joined the show a little later, it didn't take long for fans to love him. His quick wit, those hilarious one-liners, and just the way he carried himself, it all made him stand out. But when Storage Wars took a break in 2019, people started wondering what he was up to. Turns out, he wasn't just sitting around. He launched his clothing line featuring his signature catchphrase and kept busy running Jackie's Famous Pralines, a nut and candy company straight out of New Orleans. Then came the pandemic, and with all that extra time, Crossley tapped into his creative side. He started dropping beats under the name Dual Persona, and even created a YouTube channel where he shared his love for good, everyday food. But that love for food? It led to something even bigger. On August 31st, 2022, he shared a personal update on Instagram. He was beginning a weight loss journey. He expressed that it was time to change his eating habits and give himself the gift of better health. It was a significant undertaking, one that many could relate to and support. Brandi Pante. Brandi Pante stepped away from Storage Wars in 2014 and later returned to reality television with Brandi and Jared, Married to the Job. However, the show did not achieve the ratings A&E had anticipated and was canceled after just 1 season. Following its cancellation, Pante largely withdrew from the spotlight, at least temporarily, before eventually making her return to Storage Wars. Her personal life, however, took a different trajectory. Over the next few years, her relationship with Jared Schulz deteriorated, and by 2018, the two had officially separated, as reported by People. Their jointly operated business, Now and Then second-hand store, has also since closed, according to MSN. But if it seems like she took a loss, that's not exactly the case. Pante, known for her straightforward approach, found success beyond the storage auction scene. In 2021, she became a recurring guest on the Happening Now with Hammer podcast, hosted by Hammer Brunch. Her dynamic presence and chemistry with Brunch led to a permanent role, making her a near-constant fixture on the show. By 2022, she had even invited some of her Storage Wars co-stars onto the podcast, offering listeners a behind-the-scenes look at how they were cast on the series, as reported by Happening Now with Hammer. Mary Padian. A&E recognized the widespread popularity of Storage Wars and decided to expand the franchise by introducing spin-offs in various locations beyond California. One such spin-off took place in Texas, where the network discovered Mary Padian. Known for her ability to transform discarded items into valuable pieces, she quickly earned the nickname the Junkster. Her talent stood out, and by Season 5, she was brought into the main Storage Wars series. Now, if reality TV teaches you anything, it's how to keep it moving when the cameras stop rolling. Mary Padian already knew that game. When Storage Wars wrapped up in 2019, she went right back to doing what she loved. And thanks to the show's exposure, her store, Mary's Finds, took off. She's been keeping it stocked with everything from vintage home decor to charity bracelets, making sure her fans always have something new to check out. By 2022, she appeared to be using her platform to promote causes she genuinely supported, focusing on eco-friendly and women-owned businesses. However, her absence from Season 14 of Storage Wars remains unexplained. While the reasons behind her departure are unclear, one thing is certain: she has stepped away from the reality TV spotlight and seems to be thriving on her own terms. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment, and turn on post notifications to stay updated with our latest content.